So in the last video, we tuned the bike and quarter-miled it. And honestly, it wasn't that impressive. 12.9, basically 13 seconds. The truth is, this bike runs about like a low 12-second, high 11-second bike. I'm losing about a second somewhere. And if you look at the graph page on the run, I think we're losing it into the 0 to 60. I should have a better 0 to 60 time than this. If you look at the quarter-mile time, those don't really compute. And it makes sense. For a 12-second bike, if you shave a second off the 0 to 60, you'll end up shaving about a second off the quarter-mile. And that's about where I should be. So I think my 0 to 60 time is slowing me down, and that's the main thing I wanted. I just want to beat the Lambo from a stoplight. I don't even care about the quarter-mile time. My goal is to make the 0 to 60 on this bike fast. I can use a wheel speed calculator to figure out where 60 miles an hour is on this 19.2-inch tire. And when I say that, that's the diameter of the tire. It's a 12-inch wheel. But 19.2 inches puts my 60 mile an hour mark at 1,050 RPM. And that's important to know because we're gonna be looking at the graph page and seeing where the issue is. All my settings below 1,050 RPM and what's going on. The first issue is this throttle. Throttles work on a 5-volt signal. They're about 68 degrees of twist, and they have an input voltage from the controller of somewhere around 5 volts. That's the red wire going into the throttle. Here's your throttle connection. You also have a ground wire. That's your black wire. Then you have a green wire. The green wire is a signal. Again, between 0 and 5 volts, even though it's actually only 4.31 or something like that. Not what's important. That doesn't matter. We're just talking about that's the input voltage. So those 3 wires go into your throttle. On my case is this throttle box back here, and inside this throttle box is a magnetic strip, basically a Hall sensor. And the Hall sensor converts that to volt, sends it out the green wire and into the controller. So in theory, if I could open this throttle fast enough, and I mean really fast, from 0 to full throttle, it would be like an on-off switch. Now the throttle is obviously built like a dimmer switch, but if I could be fast enough, it could be an on-off switch. Show you what I'm talking about. So the obvious answer is twist that grip faster. And the motor will come on like an on and off switch. I'm like a Sholon priest of throttle twisting, kung fu grip. I can twist the throttle so fast, you can't even see it move. And I'm gonna demonstrate. Did you see it move? Nope. The frame rate of this camera is too slow to catch my Sholon priest kung fu grip, but it still didn't come on right away. We don't want just an on-off switch to control our bike. It would be out of control. You want it to be like a dimmer switch. More throttle, less throttle. So we turn this on, but see the delay in there? It's like a controller. There's a delay. So even though we've given it a dimmer switch to control our throttle, I think if we were to use our kung fu grip and go full throttle all at once, it won't do it. See, it doesn't. It starts coming up gradually. And that's the problem we're having with the throttle. I turn the throttle on to max, and it takes it a while to come on. If you look at my graph page again, I'm using my kung fu grip. I'm turning this thing on instantaneously. I should be delivering 600 amps into the controller and into the rear wheel, but I'm not. Look at everything below 1,000 RPM. It's taking me forever to get to 600 amp. Even though I've got 600 amps, that is my max. Even though I just told the throttle I want max, but it's taken a long time to get there. And that's where I'm losing my 1 second in the 0 to 60. The bike is just too sluggish off the line. What's happening is that green signal that's telling it I want all 5 volts, we'll say, is being converted into an 8-bit signal inside the controller. And if you go back to your color wheel, 8-bit, that's 256 shades. So 8 bits gonna give me 256 unique values. It's gonna take that and it's gonna build a curve that it ramps up throttle in. So you're not just running off an on-off switch. It's gonna try to emulate a gas engine. Now we can adjust a lot of this curve and how it happens in the Fardriver app. So I've been asking a bunch of guys how to make that happen faster. How do we get this throttle to come on faster? How do I get the controller to deliver those amps quicker and make this thing faster out of the hole and not so gentle? I got quite a few answers, quite a few different things to try. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right. They're just good ideas. And we're gonna try them all and see which one works. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about the actual 0 to 60. I'm not going to worry about my battery voltage, so we can just do all these tests back to back. I'm not going to recharge between tests and stuff like that. I'm just going to simply look for a better or worse. We're going to try some of these settings that I was told to change. To avoid cross-contamination of results, I have a pretty good idea of what settings should make it faster and what should make it slower. For example, ACC steps, I know, or I think, that 224 is going to be faster than 100. So For the test, I'm gonna have everything at what I think or what I know to be the fastest 0 to 60 setting, and I'm only gonna change the one I'm testing. Everything will be open, ratio and speeds, 100%, 224 when I test like throttle response. And that should make the test fair for all the different parameters I'm gonna try. What I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna start with what would be considered the lamest setting. For example, throttle response has 3 curves choices. This is what I'm talking about when they take that 5-volt signal and turn it into an 8-bit to use to build the throttle curve. So the curves are Eco, and we'll start with that one so we can see if they improve in the other ones. And what Eco does, it's a progressive curve with less power towards the low RPMs. The other choices are Line, which is supposed to be a linear curve, more like an electric motor. Throttle position is linear all the way up to max from 0. And then Sport is a curve again, but it starts out high and the taper off is more towards the high power end, and it starts with more power. Obviously we think Sport should be the best, so we'll start with Eco. We'll test it on Eco, then Line, then Sport.
Something you have to keep in mind is the 0 to 60 and quarter mile times in my last video going up on the controller from 450 amps to 600 amps. The differences seemed very small, but it's actually very huge. A 1000 Sport bike has 170 to 190 horsepower. A 600 only has 100 to 120, 25 horsepower. That's a huge difference. Those are huge differences in those bikes. Their 0 to 60 time is only 0.3 to 0.5 seconds difference. Their quarter mile time is maybe a second different, if even that. I shaved a second off my quarter mile time. That's pretty much going from a 600 to a 1000 cc. It's significantly faster with his new controller on it, the ND96 1200. Anytime you lower the voltage of the battery, you're going to end up with a slower bike. So generally speaking, if you make 2 runs and your runs are equal, your second run was actually a little bit better, just a tiny bit. Well, I'm not going to charge the battery and everything between runs, so we're looking for an equal or better time on these changes. All right, throttle response test. And like I said, we have everything else set at max, 100% in the ratios, 224 on AC step, but we have the throttle response in Eco. .19. That was pretty good, actually. Okay, let's go to Line. .18. That's an improvement. Sport. See what that's all about. We're breaking myths here today, guys. .20. Not an improvement. Interesting. The takeoff on that felt a little bit weaker. Just the initial takeoff on Sport. Let me double check I'm in Sport, and I am. I saved it. That's really strange. I'm going to try another run in Sport. So it seems like to me Line and Sport are about the same. Line felt better, but the numbers are saying it's the same, and it's equal to or better. So I'm sure everything's heating up.
That electric?
Yes, sir. I definitely smell my brakes burning, but let me see what my temperature is. Yeah, 51 on the motor, 42 MOS, that's nothing. So it's just my brakes I smell burning. Okay, we'll leave it in Sport since I got the same time on Line and Sport.
The next one I was told to adjust is throttle ACC steps. The range is 8 to 224. So when I run the auto learn, throttle ACC step always says 180. I'm going to set it to something even lamer. I'm going to set it to 100. What I've read is that that's the sensitivity of the throttle. What the controller's using with that 8-bit map to build your throttle curve based on throttle response. 224 is the max to get the quickest throttle response and stop that delayed light switch effect. So I'm going to start it on something lame like 100, then we're going to increase it to 224 and see how much that helps us in that 0 to 60. And something I'm not going to adjust, but I just want you to look at is Eco ACC COEF 8. There have been guys on Endless Forum that say that was not on 8. 8's maximum. It's only supposed to apply when you're in Eco. That's why it says Eco ACC. It is not supposed to have any effect if you're in Line or Sport, but the guys on the forums are saying it does. So just make sure that's an 8. We're going to leave it there. And you do want to make sure your throttle low and high. Right here I've got 0.9 set and 4.2 set. You want to make sure those are set up. That's going to help your Kung Fu throttle reaction. The low should be 0.2 2 volts above idle. Idle is what your auto learn is going to do. If you get that too low, the thing will just start driving on you while your throttle's off, so you don't want it too low. That's why they say have it 0.2 volts above idle. In a lot of videos, you'll see them just say as a blanket statement, put it at 1.1. That's just the math the book derives from the settings that it was given in auto learn. I would twist the throttle quite a bit before it would even take off. So that dead space in there I wanted to get rid of. I don't think it was all just cable slack. So that's why I lowered it to 0.8 volts. And that seemed to work. So here I have it some throttle. Now we can see the display on the graph page how much throttle I'm adding. I'm at 0.75 at idle. So yeah, 0.8 might be too low for my idle. That's only 0.05 difference. I could get a glitch and just start taking off. So right, there's 0.8. There it goes, about 1 volt. It starts moving. The throttle high is really not that important, but there is something you have to know. When you open this throttle up, you're going to see 256 on your graph page. When you see 256, that's the 8-bit full throttle. So you could go in there and assign 3 volts as full throttle. Now I only have to turn it to here to get full throttle. It's like a shorter throttle range. You'll see 256 when you're just right here. And that may seem like a good idea, but there's a reason not to do that. The throttle has a protect mode, 0.6 volts over what you assign full throttle at. That protect mode is to shut the controller down in case you have a runaway throttle. So let's say you assign it at 3 volts, but then you go beyond 3 volts and you send 3.7 volts to the controller. The controller is going to shut your bike off. So let's say full throttle is 4.5, for example. Then you probably don't want to assign full throttle anything less than 4, because you need that 0.6 in there so the controller doesn't shut you off.
So we're going to try something little like 100 just to get an idea. That's still within the parameters. All right, we know we're just on 224 and we got that 4.18. So I'm going to put it on 100, save it. 4.22 that time. So throttle steps at 100 definitely slowed me down. Max is 224, and we'll just keep it at that.
Now ratios and speed. You remember on my tuning video, I limited these, and I said it would not limit us in any way, because mathematically we figured out I wasn't even using the phase amps that were available. But some people say they will limit you because there's a lot of things happening between, say, 750 RPM and 875 RPM. We're just giving it data points to build a curve, and I could be limiting it. So we're going to try that. What I did is I limited the ratios down to something above what the phase amps were showing on my drag race takeoff. Just a little bit above. Mathematically, it should not limit us, but I'm going to test it going to all 100s below 1050 RPM. 1050 RPM being 60 miles an hour. I'm just going to assign it all 100s in here and see what happens. And of course, this only is going to apply in button 3. That's when we have max line 600, max phase 1200. And there's another one on here called limit speed. We're under protect. LMT speed start and LMT speed minimum cap. These need to be 0. Filter so you don't burn out on grass and things like that. It keeps the wheel from slipping. And also make sure you're not limiting yourself and don't realize it. Go to the simple mode. That should be 100% on gear high power output. Obviously, if we drag race someone, we're going to be in button 3. We want button 3 to be 100%. And why it wouldn't be, open pro again, let's say I had my max phase at 1000 and didn't realize it. Now if I go to simple mode, you'll see I'm at 83% output, because that's a combination of what you're putting in to the pro mode. So make sure that's on 100% so you don't have something in there that you don't realize is limiting you.
I've got everything below 60. So there's 1125, 1150 is 60 miles an hour. I've got it all at 100%. We're going to try to see if we worsen or better the time by tapering this down. Now mathematically this shouldn't make a darn bit of difference, but in my tuning video I said to taper this down. We're about to find out if I'm full of crap or not. Okay, I built a little taper here that shouldn't affect it at all. 95, 95, 90, 85, 80. So those are not low at all. I just want to see if they affect my 0 to 60. Let me save that. I think it did affect it. We're going to find out. 4.23, that got a lot worse. So those ratios and speed do limit you. I was wrong about that. Wow, or that's the worst 0 to 60 yet. I'm going to keep it 100% below 60.
Then after that, we're going to go down to this LQ number. LQ 329. This is a signal from the throttle between 1 and 4 volts. It calibrates what half throttle is. The self-learning knows what no throttle is, it knows what full throttle is, but it really doesn't know what half throttle is. This LQ number tells it what half throttle is, and this was a default number on here. The range is 0 to 4,000. It gets pretty microscopic on the range. Those are in millivolts. So 1,000 millivolts is 1 volt. So right now what I've got is 0.329. That's 0.3 volts. It takes off good, but it's almost like I have to get it about right here to get it to going. Barely takes off, then it's like, okay, come on, there it goes. So I think my half throttle is set too low. It stays 1.2, 1.3 volts. It doesn't increase that much, 1.3. I think I'm gonna move that number up. And those are millivolts. Bring it up to 1. So 1,000, that's 1 volt. But I can already tell it got rid of that dead spot. So that dead spot's gone now. I'm gonna see if that really makes a difference.
I'm doing a lot more runs than I'm showing. Some of these I'm doing multiple runs just to make sure it's not just a glitch in the matrix, that it's actually getting a better or worse time. And the battery's starting to wear down, so my runs are getting slower. And for the LQ test, I was at 1500, but I'm going to take it back down to what you typically see after an auto learn. So I'm going to set that at 329 and see if it gets better or worse. 4.27. It actually felt a little slower, and because the battery's getting lower, I'm going to go back and test that at 1500 again, and there might be better numbers in there. I'm just trying to show that LQ does make a difference in your takeoff, 0 to 60. I'm not fine-tuning that yet. Alright, here's that LQ test with the battery now that it's lower. I've got it back to 1500. Now we're at 425, so the LQ 1500 is faster by 3/100ths of a second, but that's still faster. Yeah, my overall times are just going down. What I'll probably do now is go back and charge the bike so I have more consistent stuff. Max speed, I think it put 3,000 in there. I'm on auto learn, but I put 2,000 in there. If you do your speed calculator to your wheel size, I'm not going to be going faster than that. And this is just a theory someone has. When this builds a curve and you go to full throttle, you're telling the bike that you want to be at 2,000. So it builds a curve trying to get you to 2,000 RPM. And it's going to use your maximum line amps, which we've got at 600, to do that. Now, if I was trying to get to 4,000 RPM, would that curve build me something faster? Would it get me to 2,000 faster if I was trying to get to 4,000? That's what we're going to find out. It may be using this maximum speed I've got set at 2,000 RPM also. So I'm going to bump that to 4,000. I'm going to also bump the speed limit to 4,000 and see if that jumps us up. I charged the battery so that 4.18 time won't be consistent. We're kind of starting over with the times. I did put the max RPM to 2,000. 4.24. Now we'll go and set the max RPM. We'll try 4,000. See if that makes a difference. I'm going to change it in both places. So it's not letting me do 4,000 there. Let's try down here. Invalid value. Well, for some reason it won't let me do 4,000. I don't know why. I'm going to try 3,000. We'll save that. So I've got it set under ratios, and I've got it also set at the top under max speed. And we were 4.24. Reset. That made a big difference. Wow. I'm going to give credit to Lou at IMHO. That was probably the biggest difference we've made so far on 0 to 60 times. 4.17. What a drop. How it builds that curve is in PID parameters. And these are the ones you're not supposed to really touch. Start KI, start KP, mid KI, mid KP, all these things here. There's a chart for them. They say use the chart. Don't just willy-nilly input your numbers in there. Don't try to self-adjust this. They say that's very important. It's a risk of burning up the motor with poor current control. When I used their chart, I didn't know if this was a high-speed motor or an ultra high-speed motor. Apparently it's a ultra high-speed motor. This is a 20,000 watt motor, and they're considering this an ultra high-powered motor. Maybe the high-powered motor is the 8 to
15,000 watt one? I don't know, it doesn't say. I don't have a way of changing these KP numbers. I can only change the KI numbers. But when I did the auto learn, I came out with, I think, 6612 or 6812. The PID parameters are broken down into a start, a mid, and a maximum. They have a KI and a KP. Now we can't adjust these KP numbers. They self-adjust when we adjust the KI numbers. The KP is a proportional constant. As the motor speeds up, it lowers line amps. That's the math it's using. The KI is the integral constant, and that's what's allowing line amps to stay high while the feedback tries to lower it. This is all how your field weakening works, how your ratios and speed works. I got a theory from someone that it should affect your takeoff speed. We're given numbers for start, mid, and max, and it's broken down in small, medium motors, high power motors. I was told that this motor by the manufacturer was ultra high speed motor, so I should be running 2, 2, 3 start, mid, and max, but my auto learn put me at 669. So I'm going to go back to 669, and then I'm going to see if I get an improvement when I go to 2, 2, 3.
I've even seen 4, 6, 12 in there. Yeah, it didn't seem to really make a difference. 4.19, 4.17, I guess that is a difference. Now that I've got a few runs on it, that could just be the regular run as the battery gets depleted. But if I can beat that, I will know that the PID parameters do make a difference. And I'm not sure you can just go and change your PID parameters. I think it has to be matched to the motor. But I was told that this 223 matches me, and that's what I'm going to put in here. 4.20. So I'm going to go put some bigger numbers in there. I think the bigger numbers might actually be faster. So here's the numbers for medium power. I tried that 669, and I think I got faster with that. I'm going to try small and medium power. I'm going to try 8812. And let's see if we can beat better than 420. They're pretty darn close. I don't know if my battery's just getting weaker or if this PID parameter is making a difference. So 8812 in there now. Now, same exact time. So I'm going to go ahead and say the PID parameters don't make a difference. Yeah, they might make a difference in something, but not what I'm doing, not my 0 to 60. I'm seeing no different outcome on this. So I'm going to go back to what they recommended, 223, just because that's what my motor's supposed to have.
Speed KI, they have 9 there. They're saying for a heavy car, use 18. That's the max. For something light, 2. The default is 9. It goes from 1 to 18. I don't really understand what Speed KI does. If it thinks the bike is lighter and I have that lower number, does it give less power so it's not too uncontrollable? If it thinks it's a car and it's heavier, will it expect it to be heavy so it'll give me a lot of power early to take off? Maybe so. So I'm going to try to play with that. I think I'll try a setting of 4 and a setting of 18 and see what the difference is.
So AutoLearn put me at 9. I want to try 4. Let's see if this has to do with thinking if it's a light bike, they don't want to take off very fast. I get 4.19 again. So 4 might have made it faster. It was 420 to 419. With the battery going lower, it probably did. So in theory, going to 18 should make it quite a bit slower. Oh, I think it's faster. 420 again. Did you hear that back tire? The thing was like doing burnouts, skipping like crazy. I want to try that one again. Yeah, I might have just hit some loose gravel. Maybe it's fine. 417. That made it faster. I think a bigger number in the Speed KI makes it faster. So on the first one, my tire was spinning out so much, I think I ended up doing the same thing, a 420. But on that one, I maintained grip throughout the acceleration, and I did 417. My theory is it's not ramping up as quick because it thinks you're on a light bike, where on a car, it could give it more power quicker. But that bigger number, it even feels faster. So now that I've dialed in my 0 to 60 and understand more what settings to use, I'm going to set my parameters up to favor the 0 to 60, charge my battery, and I'm going to see how much helping my 0 to 60 helps my quarter mile and my 1/8 mile. I might be amazed.